Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be talking about books that I would like to reread. Now I am really not a big rereader. I am one of those people that is like, but there are so many books out there in the world that I'm never going to get to. I have to get to as many of them as possible. I can't spend time rereading things when I could be reading something new. But it's so strange, isn't it? Because I think the books that you would want to reread are books that were favourites. So it's going to be an enjoyable, enriching experience rereading them. So why would I not want to do that? It's a weird one. I think for me as well, I didn't do a lot of rereading because when I was living in the UK, I only ever had my to-be-read books with me because I didn't want to have loads and loads of books, although I still had loads of books unread to move around with because I was moving house so often. It was just easier to have those read books back at my mum's house where I am now. So if she came to visit, she would take loads of books back with her. When I came home at Christmas, I would bring loads of books with me and leave them here. But you know, for almost a year now, I've had all my read books with me. So it would have been the perfect time to do some rereading and I haven't done it. So I have just gone through my shelves to see what books I fancied picking out to reread. There isn't a particular number here, it's just whatever I fancied pulling off the shelves. And I'm gonna kick it off with some Jacqueline Wilson books. Now I have just pulled Double Act and the Illustrated Mum off the shelves, but I have a bunch of Jacqueline Wilson books that I would love to reread. And I am going to be trying to reread as many of them as I can for the Wilsathon, which is a week-long readathon all about celebrating the books of Jacqueline Wilson and getting super nostalgic about childhood reading. I will leave all the information you need for that readathon linked down below in the description and in the cards as well if you would like to find out more about it. But yeah, Jacqueline Wilson books were just so impactful for me as a child reader, and there are some of them where I don't remember an awful lot about them anymore, and it would be really intriguing to see how I feel about them now as a grown-up reader. The next book I would really like to reread is Queenie by Candace Williams. This was one of my favourite books in the year I read it. I think it was my most favourite book the year I read it. This is about a young black woman living in London who has just gone through a really traumatic breakup. It's about her trying to get back on her feet, it's about her career, it's about her friendships, it's about her mental health spiraling and the unhealthy attitude she begins to develop towards dating. I absolutely devoured this book. I saw so much of myself in Queenie, but also realized that she had very different experiences to me as well. She was a character that I really connected to and really learned from at the same time, and I would love to just re-experience being her friend for the duration of this book. I would also really like to reread Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. Louise O'Neill is one of my favourite writers of all time. I have loved every single one of her books. This is the first one that I read and I've never reread it. This is a YA dystopian. It is essentially like The Handmaid's Tale meets Mean Girls, where young girls are essentially trained to be the perfect wife. They are essentially trained to be like Barbie dolls. As I said, Louise is one of my favourite writers of all time, and I think it's a real shame that I haven't reread this one. I would also like to reread Nina Is Not Okay by Shappi Khorsandi. This book deals with a lot of very serious topics like sexual assault and alcohol addiction, so content warnings for that if this is a book that sounds intriguing to you. But it is about a 17-year-old girl who wakes up with no memory of what happened to her the night before, and we find out that something terrible happened on that night that she can't remember. It's about her dealing with the trauma of that and also coming to terms with her alcohol addiction. It's also about her beginning to understand her own sexuality as a bisexual young woman, and I remember really connecting with that experience of sexuality, and I was reading it at the same time as a lot of things about my own sexuality were beginning to click into place. So I remember really connecting with it for that reason. But I have actually heard some negative reviews about this book since reading it, so I would be intrigued to see if on a reread I would feel as much of a connection to it. I also have 3 non-fiction books that I would like to reread. The first of those is Girls Will Be Girls by Emer O'Toole. This is a book that is all about gender performance, about the gender stereotypes that are so deeply ingrained in society and how we are all just performing them. We're following Emer throughout her own experiences of experimenting with her own gender. It's really the kind of memoir that I love, that is about a specific topic but is grounded in the writer's own experiences. And something which I really enjoyed about the reading experience of Emer's life was that being an Irish writer, her experiences are really grounded in her upbringing in this country. When I was at university and writing a lot about like gender theory and feminist theory, this was a book that I reread over and over again. But it has been maybe 4 years now since I've read it. So I think it would be a really interesting one to revisit, especially as it's something that I recommend a lot for these kind of topics. I kind of want to be assured that I still think it's good. I also really want to reread Eat Up by Ruby Tandoh. Ruby Tandoh was on the Great British Bake Off, I think one of the earlier seasons of it, and since has gone on to be an incredible food writer, and this book I absolutely adored. As someone who has a very difficult relationship with food most of the time, this is something that I just found so comforting and celebratory, and it is about just feeling the joy in food. This book is so the opposite of elitism and food snobbery. It's not about the health benefits of food, it's not what you should be eating to achieve, it's about celebrating just comfort and joy, and about putting pleasure on the plate. The thing that always stands out for me when I'm thinking about this book was her talking about cream eggs as seasonal eating. So if Eat Up was the book that completely changed how I felt about food, Eat, Sweat, Play by Anna Kessel is the book that completely changed how I felt about exercise. This book explores how, as women approach being a teenager and a young woman, they are gradually discouraged from being sporty and exercising. It's something that is far more encouraged in boys than it is in girls, and how that socialization has long-term impacts on how women view exercise in their adulthood. This was something that I definitely related to. I was a super active kid doing loads of different sports, and then when I became a teenager I suddenly just stopped. I got back into exercising a lot when I was like 22, and that was roughly the same time when I read this book, and it completely changed so many things about how I felt about myself, about my physical health and my mental health. Like, exercise was so helpful for me in so many ways, and reading this book really helped me celebrate a love of exercise. It was so motivational and helped me realize that exercising was supposed to be fun, and helped me find that joy in it again. With gyms being closed, I have really struggled with exercise. I have really struggled with finding the motivation to do it when I don't have a specific place to go with a specific, like, look, I've walked here now, so I need to be here for an hour and do it. When I've just been in my house, I've really struggled with that motivation, so I think rereading this could really help me get back into rebuilding that exercise habit, because it was something that for 2 years brought me so much enjoyment, and it's something I would really like to get back to. So there we have it. They are some of the books that I would like to reread. Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you are someone who rereads. What is one of your favorite rereads? I know some people have books that they will make sure they reread once a year, and all of the books that I've mentioned will be linked down below in the description as well if you want to find out more about them. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you in my next video.